大家好，欢迎来到陶溪川景德镇国际工作室举办的线上讲座，我是大家的主持人及翻译李芷君。陶溪川国际教育目前上线了一系列国际大师班视频课程，还将邀请国内外艺术家定期举办艺术讲座，请大家持续关注。大家听得清我说话吗？清楚的话，请在公屏上扣1。因为线上讲座用的是跨国网络，所以可能会出现信号不稳定的情况，请大家见谅。讲座过程中如果有任何问题，也可以打在评论区里，我们的工作人员会为大家解答。一切正常的话，我们的讲座就正式开始了。今晚参与讲座分享的艺术家是来自美国的艺术家 Sonya Paukune。Sonya Paukune 是美国艾姆斯社区大学的艺术设计专业教授。今晚讲座的主题是视觉语言的构建、文化与基因。Sonya 将介绍她的陶艺装置作品纳福蒂蒂系列的创作过程及灵感来源。同时 Sonya 的线上课程视觉语言的构建、文化与基因已经上架售卖，相关课程链接请大家在公屏查看。Welcome to the online lecture held by Taoxichuan Art Center. Today we're very honored to have invited Sonya Paukune as our lecturer. She's the art and design professor at Ames Community College. The title of today's lecture is The Building Blocks of a Visual Vernacular, Culture and Chromosomes. We also have invited her to film this masterclass series, also called The Building Blocks of a Visual Vernacular, Culture and Chromosomes. You can find it on sale today on our platform. Please check our website if you have an interest. Now let's welcome Professor Sonya Paukune to have her speech.
Hi there, everyone. I am very pleased to have the opportunity today to present information about my master class, The Building to finished pieces. In the class, I will illustrate the method by demonstrating my process of making the first piece in the new series, Culture and Chromosomes. I'm going to share my PowerPoint presentation now so that we can talk a little more about the details. Alrighty. This particular first slide illustrates the start of my figurative sculptural ceramics work. About 6 years ago, I had an opportunity to take a class and a workshop with Arthur Gonzalez at Anderson Ranch, Snowmass, Colorado. I made this life-size sculpture here. It's a self-portrait. And on this particular journey, I really realized that I enjoyed working with figurative pieces. One of the things that I love about this photo, it was a staff photo that was taken, is the reflection of me looking at myself. The finished piece here is a life-size sculpture, and on the surface, I painted it with Australian Aboriginal corroboree dreaming imagery. That concept symbolizes the connection and spirit. So you see all those around here. They symbolize people in my life that have passed away.
大家好，我是 Sonya Paukune， 我很荣幸为大家带来今晚的讲座。我为陶溪川景德镇国际工作室拍摄了名为《视觉语言的构建、文化与基因》的线上大师班课程。本期线上大师班介绍了我作为一名艺术家从灵感的获取到最终作品的完成等一系列创作步骤。课程中，我通过展示文化与染色体系列作品中第一幅作品的创作过程，为大家介绍这些方法。图中是6年前我在科罗拉多州一个叫做安德森牧场的地方参加的工作营，这是由一名叫做 Arthur Gonzalez 的艺术家举办的。这张照片是工作人员拍摄作为宣传用的。这幅作品是真人比例的我的个人雕像。我很喜欢这张照片的原因是，当时我正看着我自己，背景中可以看到我用到了一些小镜子和小模型来 辅助创作，而左边的是作品的最终形态。这幅作品名为《祖母的梦境》，就好像是祖母向你娓娓道来家族的传奇。在它的表面，我使用了很多澳洲土著狂欢舞会的象征符号，这些象征符号连接了大地与灵魂，用以追念逝世的家族成员。
All right, in my particular master class, there are 7 sessions during the course that go from the start of the concept of the work to the finished piece. I am going to include a whole series of work at the final stage, but for right now, I'm just working on like 3 pieces. So the master class has 7 sessions. The first one is my introductory and biography, giving kind of biographical history on why I make the art that I do. The second session is research process, using the internet, using encyclopedias, using friends and colleagues and peers. The third one is all related to my personal DNA results from 3 separate DNA companies. Fourth session, really important, the sketchbook session, really talking about like drawing your imagery, getting your ideas out as fast as you can with some sketches. Even as 3D artists, we need to draw in our sketchbooks. The fifth session is how to repurpose and recycle old works of art. As a sculptor, a lot of times you have additional pieces that you might want to use in another venue. Section number 6 is all about the tesserae and how they relate to the chromosomes. So each tesserae material has a specific chromosome that it pairs with. And then the final session is me doing an assemblage of the completed single work of art, and then a conclusion to the presentation.
我的线上大师班课程一共有7节课，他们按时间顺序呈现了一幅作品从开始到完成创作的全过程。第1节课是生平简介，以及我的个人经历是如何影响到我的艺术创作的。第2节课中，我谈到了如何利用手稿、访谈等调查方法进行调查和研究。第3节课讲述的是我在3家基因检测公司做的检测报告结果。第4节课我谈到了手稿的重要性。第5节课我介绍了如何回收再利用之前的作品，利用新的材料和手法将旧的多余的作品改造得焕然一新。第6节课我讲解了核苷酸镶嵌物的制作过程和理由，每一种核苷酸都对应着不同的材料。第7节课中，我用到了延时摄影，向大家展示作品装饰的全过程。
Okay, this particular group of imagery are based on the final work of art that I created for the masterclass. The piece is titled Mitochondria in Me. Mitochondria is the DNA that's passed on through your mother. And so that's why the title exists. All of the different materials that are located on the face of this particular sculpture are the materials representing the chromosomes. And there are 4 different chromosomes that I'm symbolizing here. After I finish making this work, I'm now kind of in what I call my observation stage, where I'm making observations on what I like, what I don't like, some things that I'm going to change. And that's where I'm pretty pleased with the piece. It's hard to see, but there's some really fun interactive elements. There's like some little buttons that you can push, and there's words that are placed in specific locations as well. So far the observation is going well.
这张图是我系列作品中的最后一幅，名为《我体内的线粒体》。线粒体 DNA 是母亲的卵细胞中线粒体内的遗传物质，这个概念在生物学中与母系遗传有关。它的脸部装饰的是4种核苷酸镶嵌物。我这幅作品中用到了包括塑料、木材、金属和粘土制成的镶嵌物。 我为大家展示了作品的背部和左右视图，但这幅作品其实非常复杂，包含了许多信息。在结束创作过程时，我通常会花一些时间认真审视它，并对作品做最终的调整。
Okay. All right, so this next slide is illustrating a couple obstacles, or actually just one of the obstacles that I faced while I was making the master class. And one of the reasons why I included this slide is really being able to overcome obstacles is par for the course to being an artist, and just living in the world. So I'm just going to mention a few of the obstacles that I overcame. One of the first obstacles, of course, is the pandemic. Basically, my college campus shut down all of their extra resources that I might have been able to use to produce the master's class. We were only allowed to teach on our campus and be on our campus during our classes. That was the first thing. The second thing is we had a massive fire here in Colorado called the Cameron Peaks Fire. It was the largest fire in Colorado history. Here's a couple slides. This is a slide that was taken, or a photo that was taken right beyond our family cabin. So we have a family cabin that's right near all of this burned out zone. And this is actually the ash that had trickled down to my town that's about, I don't know, an hour and a half away from this area. This is all the ash that was laying next to my fence in my yard. The third obstacle I overcame was my computer crashed. Technology sometimes is great and other times it's not. And I ended up getting all the information, but it was after the master class was presented, so I got it back. And then the last thing that happened was my sister-in-law passed away, and she had a long illness, and then it took her basically just as the days were coming that I was finishing the presentation. But overcoming those is part of being an artist. So I encourage everyone to do that.
接下来我想谈谈我是如何面对挫折的。不管是对于艺术家还是对于所有人来说，挫折都是生活中再常见不过的了。而我也遭遇了很多挫折。2020年3月开始，因为新冠疫情，我任职的艾姆斯社区大学被封锁，我没有办法利用学校的资源和设备拍摄线上大师课程，因此我只能向家人和朋友求助。2020年8月至11月，科罗拉多州的卡梅隆峰发生了森林大火，这是一场百年难遇的大火。我们的家庭度假小屋就在那座森林里，幸运的是，大火在烧到距离小屋半英里的距离就停了下来，而途中正是大火留下的灰烬。后来在2020年12月左右，我的电脑和外接硬盘又崩溃了好几次，我拍摄的视频和照片也被删除了。我好不容易才补全了一部分丢失的信息，但也不得不接受其他资料遗失的事实。2020年1月，我的一位家人，嫂子久病未愈，于是长辞了。她病了很多年，最终还是败给了病魔。所有这些变故都阻挠着我的创作与线上教学活动，但是作为一名艺术家，我需要集中精力，不被干扰，尽己所能向外界发出自己的声音。
All right, this particular image is an image of the second work of art that I am recycling for Culture and Chromosomes. The piece here in the center was titled Queen of the Cato, and she was actually the second sculpture that I made, or bust that I made. And I started her in a ceramic sculpture class that I teach at Ames Community College. And she actually represents my mental vision of what my great-great-grandmother would look like. She was Cato, and she was, in my mind, very beautiful. I created this particular piece in 2016, and it was in combination with a large installation I did called My Many Colored Days. And each one of these little sections has like a historical cultural connection. The little bowls that are upside down, these are called kill bowls, Navajo kill bowls. When a Navajo passes away, they put this on top of their head and the spirit goes through the hole and back into the earth. I also have a set of corroboree dreaming tiles that are based on the ancestral Aboriginals and their spirit concepts. Then in the center here, I have a group of birthing tiles. And these are just different birthing positions that women have around the world. And then the pieces over here on the right are a set of Vanitas tiles. Vanitas is a concept for the idea of life and birth. You know, that we're born and we're going to die, and everything can be like vanity in between. And so this whole show kind of relates back to birth and dying in the end.
现在我想介绍一下我拍摄大师班课程最初的灵感。这幅作品是我众多装置艺术作品中的一幅，它在艾姆斯社区大学筹划的名为《我的灿烂千阳》的展览中展出。中间的半身像是我在纳福弟弟系列作品中最初创作的作品之一。我们之后会看到纳福弟弟系列作品。我是在艾姆斯社区大学的陶艺课程中创作的，那是我最受欢迎的一节课。课上我会教学生如何制作半身像。这幅半身像是我脑海中我的曾祖母的形象。在我的感觉中，她是一位非常美的女性。这幅作品创作于2016年。最开始我只是用这幅作品做展示，但后来我开始创作了纳福弟弟这一系列作品。它的周身环绕着7个印第安纳瓦霍族风格的碗。纳瓦霍族人会将这些碗放置在去世的族人头上，碗的底部其实是底部会打上一些孔，这些灵魂会从这些孔中逃逸出来，而碗表面装饰的图案代表着我生命中离世的亲人或友人。墙上左边的这些画是澳洲土著狂欢舞会，预示着家族成员的离世。中间的漏斗形绘画预示着生命的诞生，而右边的是北欧风格的以出生和死亡为主题的瓷板画。这些装置讲述了不同文化语境下的诞生与死亡。
This slide actually features a couple things. Over here, we see my dad's Nefertiti bust replica, and she's always in the studio when I'm working on pieces for this particular series. One of the other things I forgot to mention is these are planters where I can plant plants inside of their crowns. The basic form, though, of Nefertiti is really the inspiration for how the balance works for all of these pieces. And one of the other things that I really liked is kind of how she looked at the audience that she was facing. In my particular example, this was the first one that I was trying to directly replicate. I made her out of earthenware clay body, a terra sigillata surface, and now I'm covering her in ceramic tesserae. In this particular case, the ceramic tesserae represents cytosine, and I created them in the shape of a hexagon. One of the main reasons is she was called Queen of the Cato, and I was referring back to like the concept of a queen bee in a hive, and they make the shape of a hexagon. Eventually what I'm going to do after I completely cover her face and neck with the tesserae is I'm going to fill it in with grout to finish the piece. The clay bodies that I am working with here are red rock red, a marbled Cassius and aspen porcelain, a mica clay, a recycled stoneware, and recycled white clay body, plain aspen clay, and then plain Cassius clay. Beautiful black clay body here.
这是卡都皇后经过再创作的样子，她新的名字是胞嘧啶女王。胞嘧啶是组成 DNA 的一种核苷酸，我在大师班课程中会进行更详细的介绍。它面部装饰的粘土质镶嵌物全是六边形的，因为六边形是蜂巢的形状，而蜜蜂为植物授粉滋养了大地。我打算将这些六边形的缝隙全部用镶嵌物填充。我使用了尽可能多种类的粘土，因为这些不同颜色的粘土对应着世界上不同肤色的民族。我使用了红粘土、白杨粘土、耐火粘土、艾姆斯大学的白色与红色回收粘土、白色的卡西乌粘土、卡西乌和白杨粘土的混合粘土以及 CT3 号粘土。
This slide shows on the left an example of what Queen of the Cato at the time, and this piece used to be called Frida and Me before their modification and reuse. And I just love seeing work in the kiln, but I also like the perspective and the angle of this and where you can see how these are planters. So this is where the plant is housed in the top of the crown. The poster on the left is actually the poster of my first initial installation of my many colored days. The show took about 2 years to make and completion. I started in 2015 when I was on sabbatical, and then I finished in 2017. It is a combination of both wheel-thrown ceramic vessels and sculptural portraits, busts, and then finally fine art print and fine art print books. So it was about 365 pieces, or it was exactly 365 pieces of sculptures, vessels, and books.
右边的这幅作品名为《我与弗里达》，我在大师班课程中对它进行了改造。而左边的是这两幅作品被放入窑炉时的样子。我很喜欢它们交错摆放的样子，我也很喜欢它们皇冠顶部的凹陷处。开始忘记说了，就是这个顶部的皇冠的凹陷处可以用来种花，它们是花盆的造型。这两幅作品一共是我在2015到2017年学术休假期间创作的。我为他们在我的灿烂千阳的展览中一起呈现。这场展览一共展出了我的365幅作品，包括了雕塑和版画作品。右边是一张宣传海报，是我对它进行改造前的样子。
Since the making of the master class, I have begun the construction of another sculpture in the series, and this particular sculpture is called Lucy's Sky with Diamonds. In this image, what we see is it will be Starry Night over the Rhone, and also the basic structure of the reflections of the water. Here is the sculpture of Lucy. Lucy is the first recognized humanoid, and so I wanted to create a connection with her as the base mitochondrial DNA, the ultimate mother. And I actually did a modification on the Seven Sister Star Cluster pattern, which is right up here. I wanted to come from a different direction, so this was the revised version of the star cluster pattern. And then I have Lucy's eyes looking up at the stars to capture them.
从拍摄大师班课程开始，我就一直在创作这幅名为《露西的缀满钻石的天空》的新作品。这幅作品的灵感来源有很多，它的整体造型来源于多年前发掘出的第一位人类古猿。挖掘出古猿的考古学家们将它命名为露西，因为他们出土这具古猿的晚上聚在一起庆祝，放弃了披头士的这首《露西在缀满钻石的天空下》。 我很喜欢这个故事。而皇冠的造型灵感来自于梵高的罗纳河上的星夜，我们对这幅画作都非常熟悉。而我也很喜欢露西抬眼的眼睛，因为它像是在仰望星空。
This slide features a photograph by Tamara Meyer-Mans. She's a professional photographer. It's an image of my husband and I at a beach. Here we are here in the center. And in Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night Over the Rhone, there's a couple that's walking on the beach. And this was one of my favorite photos because it was just so real. And I love the black and white aspect of it as well. So here is my rendition, my three-dimensional rendition of this. Generally, when I'm starting with a figure, what I actually do is I do like a little contour line drawing on a slab of clay, and then I cut that out and I put it onto my piece, and then I start building up from there. And the figures will be in black and white, and everything else will be very colorful.
在梵高的星夜中，有2个人漫步在沙滩上，因此我想用我和丈夫的形象替换这2个人。中间的照片是我和丈夫在缅因州纽卡斯尔的海滩上，当时我们收到缅因州分水岭艺术中心的邀请，参加了一场特邀艺术家工作营，我是那场工作营的导师。当时一起参加工作营的朋友为我们拍摄了这张照片，而我将照片中的形象装饰在了皇冠上。这张照片是黑白的，右边是浮雕的特写镜头。通常我会在粘土表面绘制轮廓线条，再雕刻出人形，并将雕刻好的人像粘接在皇冠表面，之后再细致地雕刻出细节部分，修饰出最终效果的三维立体人像。
On this image, we see one of the other inspirations for the crown of the piece, and that is the bridge. There's a stock photo of the bridge, and then here are my kind of stylized renditions of it. My father was born in Nijmegen during World War II, and his family immigrated to the United States as soon as they could get a sponsor here in America for themselves and their boys. I always have this dream of visiting this small town to experience the culture of that particular part of my family. And so I also loved the play of lights on the water and how they would be reflecting on the scene below them. And I also like the concept of creating a bridge between, the United States and the Netherlands for my father to come here and meet my mother and give, have me, have a little baby girl.
最后我想谈谈皇冠上的这座桥，因为桥梁象征着连接2种文化或是2个地方。而我父亲在2战期间出生于荷兰的奈梅根，后来从荷兰移民到了美国，因此我用桥梁象征着从一个国家移民到另一个国家。这张照片是皇冠上桥梁的灵感来源。我在皇冠表面盘出了一些泥条，整幅作品中只有2种颜色，而烧制后皇冠的边缘会是如河水般的湛蓝。在皇冠内侧，我打算使用一些贴花装饰，这些装饰会是染色体或是线粒体 DNA 的图案。我很喜欢灯光投射在波光粼粼的水面上，明暗交织的光影，所以我打算用釉下彩呈现出这张照片中水面幽深的色彩。
The last set of slides will be my thank you slides, and then concluding with my initial idea for my installation. So this is a photo of my family. We have my son, Blake Warner, and he was the videographer and also did some of the pre-editing for my master's class. He is a student at the college that I teach at, and he's getting his degree in communications media. Here, of course, is myself. This is my husband, Chris Warner. He's also an artist educator and a ceramic professor at a place called Colorado Early Colleges in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's a combination high school college. And then the last person is my son, Sabin. He is a culinary artist. He is currently right now going to culinary school, and he just gave me a lot of really good food while I made my presentation.
这张照片中是我想要感谢的家人，从左至右分别是我的儿子 Blake、我的丈夫 Chris 和我的儿子 Seven。我的儿子 Blake 为我拍摄和剪辑了线上大师课程。他在2020年暑期参加了艾姆斯社区大学的视频剪辑和 Photoshop 课程。而中间的是我的丈夫 Chris。他也为我的线上大师班拍摄了一部分内容。他是一名陶艺家和教育者，他在一所高中教授大学课程。最后，我的小儿子 Seven， 他在我的创作期间为我做了很多好吃的。他在科罗拉多山大学学习厨艺，一直以来他都是我灵感的源泉。
I would also like to give my deepest thank yous to Sin-Ying Ho, my friend, colleague, and peer. She recommended me for this program, and I just believe she's one of the most amazing artists and educators. She's inspired myself and multiple artists around the globe, so I want to give a shout out to Sin-Ying Ho. This is an image of her working in the studio where she's applying these beautiful, delicate surfaces on her elegant forms.
我想对我的朋友以及同事何善莹老师致以最诚挚的谢意，是他举荐我参加陶溪川设立的线上大师班和讲座项目。他是一位非常了不起的艺术家，他不仅才华横溢，还是我认识的人中最为慷慨大方的。他对我以及世界各地的许多名艺术家都产生了很大的影响和启发。这张图中，他正在为一件非常形态优美的作品上色。
Our first meeting and our first introduction was in 2012 when Sin-Ying and I did a panel presentation for NCECA, the National Council on Education in the Ceramic Arts. And the title of that presentation was Teaching 3D Art on a Virtual Plane. Then the second time that we got to do a presentation together was one that I was moderator for, and I created the panel. And this is a photograph of us. That particular presentation and panel presentation was also at NCECA, and it was called Women in Clay, Cultural Impacts Women in Clay. And here is a photo of the four of us. There's Sanam Imami. She's a professor at CSU in ceramics. Of course, Sin-Ying Ho, myself as well, and then Dr. Ella Maria Ray, who works at Metro College in Denver, teaching anthropology, Africana studies, and then she also has an MFA in ceramics and does ceramics classes too.
这是一张我与何善莹老师的合影，但是很遗憾我没能找到我们第一次一起合作的照片。那是在2012年，华盛顿西雅图举办的以 3D 艺术教学为主题的美国陶瓷艺术教育学会。当时我们第一次合作，我与何善莹老师以及另外一位艺术家 Shannon Shalov 是那次学会的主讲人，而我丈夫 Chris 是那次活动的主持者。这张照片是2017年拍摄的，那是在俄勒冈的波特兰市举办的以文化影响粘土中的女性形象为主题的美国陶瓷艺术教育学会上，我是那场活动的主持和主讲。何善莹老师以及另外两位艺术家 Sanam Imami 和 Ella Maria Ray 博士也一起参加了这次活动。 我在屏幕下方放了这次学会的链接，如果大家感兴趣，可以浏览这个网站。
Okay, so the last slide that we're going to look at, I think, is the most exciting. This slide focuses on future ideas for the series, as well as how I envision the installation. I plan on having the space shaped like an octagon, so you can kind of see the little shadow here. And basically, the idea would be each one of the sides of the octagon would have one of my pieces in the chromosome series. The front would be the entrance. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about my ideas for the installation itself. All of the 7 pieces will feature a stylized mirror and an environmental mural that relates to the piece, the bust, of course, and then also a very specific pedestal. And all of the pieces will be facing towards the center, and the audience will be in the middle here of that octagon. I'm just going to give a little brief information about each piece. This is the Queen of the Cytosine that we were looking at. She's going to be on a beehive to represent the concept of the queen bee. And I don't know what her mirror is going to look like. The mirror is a new feature, so I don't have details on those. My next piece that I'm going to be making after I finish Lucy is the Ruth Bader Ginsburg piece. She's a very famous, well-known Supreme Court justice here in the United States who passed away in 2020. She's going to be on a steel pedestal because I kind of think of her as very strong and having a lot of strength. Her material that she's going to represent is guanine, and that's metal in the case of my chromosomes. Here's Lucy in the sky with diamonds. She's actually going to represent thymine, excuse me, and she's going to be on a big tree trunk. And also her tesserae will be wooden discs. The piece here in the center is Greta Thunberg. It's the only pedestal that will be suspended from the ceiling. It's 2 welded steel pedestals with just pipe steel, and then it'll have a light in the center, and she'll be sitting on top of a mirror. I don't have details about her crown yet. The next piece after that will be my piece that's in honor of Maya Angelou. And I believe that this piece is going to be called Why the Caged Mitochondria Sings. Maya Angelou has a very famous poem called Why the Caged Bird Sings, and also a biography. So her crown will be a actual bird cage that I'm going to fashion into a crown with a ceramic little bird in there. Then we have Mitochondria in Me, which is the piece that the master class is focusing on. And she will be sitting on what's called a pie safe. That's a South American piece of furniture that holds pies or baked goods. And then the last piece will be my self-portrait. I don't have any real details about what the crown will look like on that one, but I know that the pedestal will also be welded steel grid panels, and then inside of all the little squares will be slides that I had. As an artist from many years ago, we used to use slides before digital imagery came in. So I have boxes and boxes of slides of my work, students' work, colleagues' works. So I'm going to sew those into the little open squares, and then it will also have a light. So that's like the final idea for the work of art, is to have this large installation. And all of them, as I said, will have mirrors, but I don't have details on those. So the last thing I wanted to do is I wanted to thank the Taoxichuan Art Center for all of their help. I also want to thank Ning for really assisting me with all the technology, and Lisa for translating for me. And I hope that students are inspired to create really thoughtful work and informed work after this class. And thank you so much for watching.
最后关于未来装置作品展览的设想，我想在一个8边形的展厅内展出，前面是入口，另外7面 摆着我的7幅作品。这几幅作品中3幅是面向墙壁，而4幅是朝向画廊的中心区域的。所有装置作品的高度都相当于它们人物原型的高度，并且讲述了与人物原型及其时代背景相关的故事。我的第一幅从左边到右边，左边开始的第一幅作品是苞蜜地女王，它有着木质的方形封箱底座。因此我需要置办一个封箱，或是自己动手做一个。封箱的底座与封后的概念相连接，它有着粘土制的6边形蜡画镜面和粘土制的苞蜜锭镶嵌物。而第二个是鲁斯巴德金斯伯格，她是美国非常著名的女法官，于2020年去世。她有着钢铁般坚韧的意志，因此我认为钢铁这种材质最能代表她的形象。我用金属焊接了一个带有纹理的底座，而她总是佩戴法官的领结，这代表着她作为审判者的威严。我希望在之后在作品中结合这些元素。第3幅作品是露西的缀满钻石的天空，它的底座是一段直立的木桩，它的表面装饰有木质的胸线嘧啶镶嵌物，而镜面则镶嵌有树木的年轮纹理。而第4幅是以格雷塔桑伯格为原型，他是环保主义的倡议者，只有他的底座是悬空的，像一座冰山。它是以焊接金属管为支架，表面覆盖有回收再利用的塑料，而底座上同样放置了一面镜子。它是用塑料制的鸟飘零镶嵌物装饰而成。第5幅作品的原型是玛雅·安吉罗，他是一名民族主义诗人和作家。他的底座是堆叠的旧书本。他的这幅作品的名字是线粒体 DNA 为何而歌唱，因为他有一本书名叫《我知道笼中鸟为何歌唱》。我会将它的皇冠制成鸟笼的造型，再在鸟笼中装饰陶瓷制的鸟。它由纸光盘和以及4种染色体核苷酸镶嵌物装饰而成。它的镜框上装饰了他的诗歌与电子书籍、光盘等等。第6幅作品是我的个人肖像雕塑，它的底座是三角形的，用金属焊接成网格状。我会将我与我朋友过去所有的作品都镶嵌在网格当中，而中间装有灯光，可以照亮这些过往。它的表面装饰有4种材质制成的核苷酸镶嵌物。最后一幅作品名为《我体内的线粒体》，它的底座是带有纹理的传统墨西哥立式碗橱，而它的镜框也装饰有与碗橱风格一致的传统雕刻纹理，由4种材料制成的核苷酸镶嵌物装饰而成。最后我想感谢大家收听今晚的讲座，感谢陶西川对我发出的邀请，感谢所有的工作人员对我的支持，希望大家能够收看我的线上大师班课程并从中获益，谢谢大家。现在进入观众提问环节，如果大家有任何问题想问艺术家的话，请将问题打在公屏上，我们将随机选取4到5个问题，请艺术家解答。现在请大家将问题打在公屏上。Thank you so much for this wonderful speech, Professor. Now it's time for our audiences to ask you some questions. We're going to select 4 to 5 of them for you to answer. And now we will wait. Thank you. So the first question is from Ming. He asked that in your finished works, some works are pretty colorful and some are not. And I want to ask, how do you choose the colors of your works?
When I'm thinking about the color palette, I generally focus on the idea or the concept that I'm trying to create. So, for example, in the mitochondria in me, it's based on Frida Kahlo, and so her color palette is really vibrant and bright. So I wanted to replicate that in the finished work of art. Even in the tesserae patterns that I created, she's one of the few that actually example or gives an example of all four of the chromosomes: guanine, thymine, cytosine, and which was, oh, sorry, I've forgotten the last one. And
Cytosine.
Cytosine. Oh my goodness, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. So I wanted, because she is so eclectic, I wanted to use all of those materials on her to re-emphasize the idea of Frida Kahlo and her palette. With Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, her figure itself is going to be kind of brownish, dark browns, light browns, but her crown is also going to be very vibrant. But it's going to be in kind of this split complementary Vincent van Gogh technique, where he has like these beautiful blues and purples juxtaposed to like oranges. So his palette is my palette for that particular piece. And then the cytosine, Queen of the Cytosine, it is based on the clay body. So I wanted to emulate the concept of multiple colors of skin. And so that's why I'm using all the variety of clay bodies to utilize that. So generally the color palette directly relates to the story that I'm passing on.
Okay, thank you so much. 刚才的这个问题是来自于来自您的，他问的是在您已完成的作品中，有的颜色丰富，有的则色彩不多，请问您是怎么来选择作品中的色彩的？关于这一点呢， Sonya 的回答是，我对于色彩的选用主要是取决于作品的主题，比如说在我体内的线粒体这幅作品当中，我是借用了弗里达和我的形象的融合，因为弗里达是一个非常活力的人，所以这幅作品的色调也是十分活力和明亮的。我在他的脸上装饰了4种核苷酸镶嵌物，包括了线嘌呤、鸟嘌呤、胞嘧啶、胸腺嘧啶等等。因此它的颜色是非常的多彩的。而在露西的缀满钻石的天空下这幅作品当中呢，我主要用到了棕色的色调，因为它是象征着南方古猿，来自带有木材的质感，但是它的皇冠也是十分具有活力的色调。同时我还结合了梵高的《星夜》这幅画作中的湛蓝的色彩。而在胞嘧啶女王的这幅作品当中呢，我用了各种不同颜色的粘土，因为我想用这些不同颜色的粘土来象征着地球上不同肤色的人。因此所有的我对于色彩的选择其实都取决于作品的想要传达的故事本身。So the second question is from Seeing Ho, and she asked that, would you please talk about the choice of human figure?
Could you repeat the question?
Would you please talk about the choice of women figure?
Oh, yes, the women figures. One of the things that's really important in my work, and I go over this in the biography session of my master's class, is my sisters. So I have 5 sisters, and that's not including stepsisters. But my sisters and I had a really strong connection as we grew up. And so I'm always trying to speak from a woman's perspective. Not only am I a woman, but I am surrounded by women. And so that's one of the reasons why I use female figures. But I also strongly believe in this concept of like, you know, the Mother Earth. And so I refer back to the idea of nurturing, whether it's from the earth or from our own mother or from our sisters. And so that's one of the reasons why the female conversation is so dominant in my particular style of making pieces and my storytelling.
Thank you so much. 刚才的这个问题是来自于何善莹老师的，他提的问题是您为什么在作品中选择了大量的女性形象？而 Sonya 的回答是，首先，我开始拍摄这一期线上大师班课程的时候，就与我姐姐有很大的关系。我一共有5个姐妹，还不包括我的继姐妹或者是其他的亲戚，女性亲戚。我从小生长的过程当中，我与姐妹的关系非常好，因此呢，我总是习惯于从女性的视角来看问题。同时呢，女性也是象征着大地之母。这也是为什么在我的作品当中，女性视角总是占主导地位的原因之一。Do we have more questions? Sorry for watching. So this question is from Ming again, and he asked that in your last exhibition we can see a lot of different symbols and they have so many different meanings. And how do you choose different materials for these different symbols?
One of the things that I really have always done is a lot of interest in culture and how we have this idea of how a person's culture is, and maybe it's divergent from the reality. But I also, what I like to do is I like to look at history and anthropology and archaeology, if you will. And one of the things with that particular show is its whole entire premise was to use icons and symbols from different continents to replicate work and kind of talk about the similarities and the differences between us as human beings. So that's one of the ways that I use those particular symbols, is looking through art history and anthropology. And then I select the ones that speak to me the most powerfully.
I think you wanted to ask that how do you choose different materials? Like, do you choose a corresponding material
yes.
for
for a particular symbol?
Yeah.
You know, actually, I do. So, when I made my prints, my books, for example, I specifically selected all the varieties of papers that related back to that particular symbol, if you will. So, for example, when I did the continent of Africa, I used a lot of wood-grained paper and wood-fibered paper. because I associate Africa with these, rich, big, full forests. So I use that material. The same reason why Lucy is going to be covered in wood and sits on a wooden tree trunk is because I associate wood with the forests that you find in certain parts of Africa. So I definitely do correspond the materials to the culture as best I can. I don't always get the perfect match, but I do try to do that. My work is primarily ceramics, but I consider myself a mixed media ceramic sculptor because I use a lot of varieties of materials.
Thank you. 我之所以选用，不好意思，刚才那个问题是来自于您的。他的问题是在您上一次的展览中能看到很多的符号，它们在各自的语境中都有丰富的意义。请问您是如何选择相应材料来对应相应的符号的？对此 Sonya 的回答是，因为我选用这么多种不同符号的原因是我对于文化非常感兴趣。这些符号有时候是一种对于现实的逃避，但是呢，还因为我非常喜欢研究考古学，因此我发现了7个大洲不同地域、不同文化语境下，对于符号的使用。对于我是如何对应相应材料的，比如说我在创作跟纸版画的作品当中，我会选择各种不同种类的纸张。如果我是创作以非洲大陆为背景的作品时，那么我会选用很多木质的纸张，因为那里是有丰盛的树木。我选用的材料有非常多种，我并不总是能够完美的对应材料和相应的符号，但是我总是尽力想要做到这一点。
I did want to expand a little bit on that question that Ming asked, and I want to combine it with his first question related back to color. So in that installation, My Many Colored Days, I took the concept of the rainbow. So, Roy G. Biv is what we call it, but, red, orange, yellow, blue, violet, green. And I associated those colors with a specific continent. So, for example, when I did Australia, I associate with the color yellow. And I just kind of think about some of the landscape in that area. When I did Africa, in that case, Africa was indigo and violet, the blues and the purples. I did South America as green. I did Asia as red. I did Australia and Oceania as yellow, and then Antarctica as blue. So in my mind, I also associate colors with that particular concept. And then the colors also helped determine some of the materials based on the color selection that I made to represent that concept.
对于刚才您问的问题呢，我还想补充一点，就是我不仅是对于材料，我是根据每一幅作品的背景和故事来选择不同的材料和颜色的。比如说在我的灿烂揭阳这一场展览中，我的很多作品都是结合了7大洲不同文化语境下的作品。我将7大洲对应了几种不同的颜色，赤橙黄绿青蓝紫。比如说我会结合当地的地理风貌来决定选用什么样的颜色。比如说我会将澳洲定义为黄色，将南非定义为绿色，将亚洲定义为红色。Sorry, did you say Antarctica? Which color was that?
Which one? I'm sorry.
Antarctica, did you say? Arctical?
Antarctica.
Antarctica.
Like the north, yes, okay. Antarctica.
And it was blue, or did you say?
It was blue.
Okay.
Yes.
And what about the OK, thank you. 而北极呢，对应的是蓝色，北极洲。So I think that will be all. 感谢大家参与今晚的线上讲座，也非常感谢 Sonya Paukune 为我们带来的精彩内容。下周三晚8点，我们还将邀请美国艺术家 Jingdezhen Chase 分享他的创作经历，请大家持续关注。陶溪川教育平台，我们还将推出更多的线上课程与活动。So thank you, Professor, for sharing your wonderful works and stories with us. We were really impressed. Thank you everybody for your attention. Thanks for coming. And I hope you all enjoyed our lecture today. Next week, we will have another online lecture held by Jingdezhen Chase, and hope to see you there.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.